Coach Lundy with Fourth Down University. Today I'm going to talk to you about your punter and how to prove him immediately. Objectives today, we're going to start with stance and start. We'll start in a sequence from beginning to end. Obviously, I'm going to address stance and start as equally as important as the other primary positions played in football. We must start well. We must start the same. We must start natural, and we must deviate from things that are unnatural. Talk to you about the mold, which is another word for how we possess the ball, how we kind of mold it throughout our process. Table is just kind of like how we get it out there as far as the height in reference to our body. And we change this table in reference to wind, some nasty conditions, or if we want to just get a higher trajectory. So it's situational. I'll explain that at length. One-step drill is kind of like a tight punt scenario, but most importantly, it compartmentalizes the process. It really breaks the punt in half. We'll go over that. Full step is what you're used to seeing in a team environment or a game. You know, most guys these days are two-step punters with a little jab step. The three-step are really avoid coaching because of the 4-yard block point, and we have to respect that. Positives and negatives with the second step previously mentioned. Second step is another word for your plant, what we drive off of as well for a punter. So we're going to talk about that. There's a big misconception that big is best, and I'm a firm believer it is the opposite. Angles for filming is essential. I'm going to show you some very interesting, easy ways to shoot your punter from some unique angles you've probably never seen before. But again, it isolates maybe a tendency. So there's a purpose behind the angles we shoot, and I'll explain how to differentiate, how to find what's the optimal angle for you to see for a certain situation. Setting standards in training, simply put, we want to hold the specialists accountable. We want to be objective in our evaluative process. We want to, if we have to split hairs, we want to look back, and we also want to see tendencies. So teach you how to chart a little bit, maybe thinking a little bit different about that. And lastly, scheduling. I want to make the punter's day or week, I should say, as structured as anybody else on the team. I really want to move away from the thought of, we're real structured offensively and defensively, but, our specialists kind of do whatever they want, in indie time. So let's dig in. Stance and start. Notice before I click play, and I'm going to use my mouse a lot today to point to certain things like his head, for example, here, but activated glute. Most kids will stand linear. They'll stand straight up and down. Watch my mouse. They'll just kind of stand. And I say, I don't want to see you and look like you are waiting in line for popcorn per se. I want to see you engaged. I want to see you ready to lift weights. I want to see you ready to jump forward, do a broad jump, do something, do a vertical. So notice, we're going to start from the feet up, but they're offsetting. I really like a staggered stance. Notice right-footed punter, right foot stagger. I generally think as a general rule that is best. Most importantly, too, with the feet is the narrow base. I think most guys are pretty comfortable with the staggered stance. However, I think a lot of guys stand much too wide, and it brings down the natural height. So you can reference the text to the right here as we go. I'm going to work through that, but I just kind of coach this. This is stuff for you to reflect on later, and I'd be more than happy at the end to share my contact information, and I would welcome any questions. Athletic stance is what it is. We've already addressed it. We've talked about the glute, and obviously if we're activating this, we need to activate a core. I think some kids are really relaxed here, and there's a disconnect, between the upper and lower half. We mentioned at length standing tall. It also gives the big target for the LS. So I don't like kids that feel powerful and athletic bent over at 3.5 feet tall. It really is it's not going to help them, and it's gonna be a disservice to the long snapper. Here's the reception with the hands. I'm a big fan of attacking the ball. Don't catch it with your body. See, he went and got it, right? Do that one more time. He's working with a guy I didn't know. This is Johnny Townsend. He was with the Raiders at the time, but he was with the Baltimore Ravens this year in the 2020 season. But I want you to see again, we've got to play these quickly and over again. I'm going to drag it now. So after he attacks the ball with the reception of the hands, notice how it's received and the laces are facing us. Watch how quickly he gets it into a mold. This is what we call the mold. There it is right there. Now he's got it. He's got a handshake on it. He's got a guide hand, kind of like a basketball shot. He's in possession of the ball the way we as punters and coaches of punters want to be. So anyway, and leaving when the ball was received, we mentioned he didn't wait. I'll just play that one more time through. As soon as ball is touched by hands, watch the left jab step go. We're activating. We're going. We're trying to get it off in 2.1 seconds, and we'll also talk about that. We've got a very busy slide. No videos here. I'm going to drag this over here. It's called the punting mold. So I should say in the list here, it's corresponding. So number one will correspond with number one and so on. So we'll start here. Handshake we've referenced. It should look like a handshake. The right hand is it going to extend another hand? This is the guide hand. This is the plant side hand. This is the thing I drew parallel to in basketball. This would be the guide hand. Okay, pinky. This is the bottom half of the ball now in the mold. So his right hand is in the handshake. By rule, I do not want this pinky to go past the bottom seam. I highlighted it in blue, and I put a red X where I do not want it to go. Imagine the pinky being where the red X is. I'm going to drag it here. Now you will create a shelf, and this is oftentimes what happens when punters are like, I don't know why when I release the ball or when it comes out, the nose goes down, and then I get end over ends, and it's nasty. So 100%. Number two is a critical angle that no one really looks at. Number three, the inner seam. If you look at your thumb as you're watching this, most of us, I would say 9 to 10 of my guys I've ever had, have a very pronounced inner seam line right here. And that's like kind of a point of reference I use for the inner seam here. Okay. So yeah, I know it's a little difficult it's more of it's a feel thing, but I tried to give you the best visual I could for that. That ensures that the ball is flat. It's not nose down. It's not nose up. Outside view, number 4 is the possession. What I stressed here, and with these offset yellow lines, there's 3 of them. I kind of wanted to highlight the fingers, the extremities here too. If they're stressed, they'll be really white. And that means he's gripping the ball entirely too hard. Okay. So if that's the case, it's usually a kid that has pretty small hands and he's putting this thumb, I dragged it over here, too far away, right? I put the thumb closer to the middle of the seam here, the lace seam, and get these together closer. If there's stress and there's grips are too hard, we're not going to dispossess the ball very well. It's going to do some crazy things. I want to be very, very loose with it, but obviously in possession. Number 5 is the guide hand filling the void. This is the plant side. We've looked at length at his right hand and underneath, but this is the plant side. This is like shooting a basketball essentially, right? We want to fill the void, right? Here it is on the underside. See how they're equal and opposite, and they're possessing the ball as it should. This keeps it away from the center of our body. So if we're a right hash going right, if we dispossess and we let the guide hand come off too soon, ball could go in the middle of the punter's body, resulting in a ball kicked in the middle of the field, away from coverage. So these are critical, and these should be addressed often. And we're going to find, or you should find, that a kid will have 1 or 2 of these more than the others. One thing I definitely skipped over, I did not want to, is in 1, this is critical. I think 1145 is essential. Okay. Like seam going through outside of forearm. This yellow line is positive. The red line is negative. Okay. Most kids hold it a little bit more 11 o'clock reference if we were going to a clock, or kids hold it midnight, which is the end over end result. What this invites, this 1145, is it covers the entire surface area of the foot. When the foot kisses the ball, I say right when it meets it for the very first time in a punt, we want it all over the foot. And if you notice, this red line is going to be kind of off. We're going to minimize the surface area of the sweet spot. Please revisit that question with me if that's not if that hasn't been explained very well. I apologize. It's just difficult in this setting sometimes. Here it is. Johnny Hecker, you guys, anyone who's a special teams guy knows Johnny, and this is Johnny in a summer training. Watch when he receives. Oh, I apologize. I'm just going to drag it. It's a quick file. So when he receives this, watch him adjust the ball, and it goes right to the outside shade. Right here, I'll freeze it right there. That's perfect. That is what we want. We want to flow through, and then I'm going to try to freeze it on his foot on ball too, like we talked about. But that's a decent example right there, right? Flowing right through the outside. That's 11:30. Midnight would look like this. Nose of the ball would be going this way, and it looks pretty, but it's not going to flow off the foot. It's not going to invite for a spiral. and then I'll try and catch it right, if I can, right on the foot. See how it's flowing 11:30? It's going to be very difficult. Yeah, I don't think I will. I apologize. I'm not as tech savvy as some of you, but you get the idea. I mean, it's going to kiss, the ball's going to meet, it's going to flow very nicely. The picture, the still photo, excuse me, to the right, that yellow line that is parallel with the floor, that's our table I referenced. And then this line that's running parallel with his sternum or his solar plexus, under his arms. These are the critical points that I coach up as far as table height. In a vacuum or a perfect condition, I think by rule, a punter should have the ball around his solar plexus, or another way of looking at the same thing is in his underarm. Some kids hold the ball entirely too low. We have waistband height issues, or too high, which is shoulder height, both of which are really inviting for gravity to hurt them. We have too little time down low, or we have too much time if we drop it from too high of a point. So that's why it says underarm and solar plexus, just two reference points when talking about table. This is what I call a one-step drill. Most people call a one-step drill. The essential thing is, if you look at the green, is we want to be light on our first step. We don't want a heavy entrance, because usually a heavy entrance will invite for a big second step. So we want to be quick off the floor. And what I say in this first step, which is when he enters in, his first step will be here, and then he'll come through and plant with his left. But first step, most importantly, if we watch this, I'm going to drag it. You'll see activity from the right foot. I guess I should hit play. And now I'll drag. What I don't like is this, and that's why I put it in here. This is an NFL punter, but I don't want to see this knee going in front, because that right there, if you look at his right shin, it's front loaded too much. It's going forward. It's not meant to be vertical. It's meant to go out. So what that does to most young guys is it invites for a real big second step that I'm dragging into now. This last step, second step, he does a fantastic job of getting to the floor quickly, regardless of doing something negative here. I'm going to replay it one more time. We want to be light on this and kind of leave this and bring the left leg here. He waited too long, right? And he's too heavy, I call this, like I said, not light. But one thing he does well is he makes this short. You look at the left side of the screen, the second step should be short, right? And I really want to draw some parallels to the bottom. Think big, small, right? We want the first step bigger than the small. Second step, right? We want the first step bigger than the second step. And what I liken it to is dunking a basketball. We want to see this. Watch his left foot come off the floor. He's got inertia. He's got stored energy to activate hips, to activate body. Most kids will overstride. We're going to see an example of this in a second. They'll overstride here, and they'll throw their hips forward, and they'll stay grounded, and all they're doing is punting with their leg. So this is a very good drill, very good result for a one-step. Watch this ball fly. It's probably a 48 net, crushes it. And I think the older guys, really like this drill too, because it makes it harder. It makes them have to be disciplined. I'm more on the one-step. This is Trevor Daniel. He was kicking for the Texans at the time. This kid's very good. If you're a Tennessee fan, he was a heck of a punter at Tennessee. But in the left, I'm not going to read to you this. I'm just going to coach you. Midline, we really focus on his center line. We want to make sure that these feet do not cross that center line, right? Because if feet cross center line, they cross other feet. So if you see that left's coming through and it's enabling the right to have a clear and evident lane, a pass right here. And look at how his knees never have to separate. Knee separation obviously is loss of power, like anything you guys coach. And then again, look at that 11:30, that mold he must have had, right? Because it's coming off the foot. And this is what I was looking for Johnny. It's coming off the entire foot. Look at that. It's all over the foot. There's literally nothing on the front side of his foot that's not touching leather. And that's how you find repeatability. And look at this inertia. This is good stored energy. Look at this 240-pound kid getting off the floor, getting good extension. Look at that plant foot. It's unreal. He's not just kicking with his leg. Okay, so I can't stress that enough. Punting is using the body well. Okay, and that's what we're trying to do. Watch the hands. See, he's got a great mold. Left hand releases when left hand, foot passes, and just hitting the ball nice and clean. That's an excellent job. Full step. I like to film here a lot, and this is something that can be done often in a team environment. But there's his first cliff, right? He hits this pretty well, right? He's pretty vertical. Drew that for him with the Barbasol. And I have this line running to tell him to go downfield. Intended target this time was, running parallel with that line. Okay, so he's doing a good job so far, but we're about to see some negative stuff. Look at the right foot now. It hasn't even left, right? This is a left-footed punter, by the way. Right foot hadn't left yet, and we're dispossessing. That's really negative because our bodies are very smart. When that right hand comes off early, watch for the left hand come off early as well. I call that like hot potato. We don't want to double release. We want to possess the ball. He wants that left hand on the ball till about right now. But like I mentioned earlier, when we let it go too quickly, look at gravity. Gravity never, ever loses. Okay. So he's going to hit this well below the point of contact, which we want to strike it right around the knee here. That right knee, look at his plant knee. Ideally, when you want to get your punt that they have no opportunity to return, that's where they want to make contact. But if you want to get your out kick coverage, here's a good shot of it. Dispossessed too soon. Ball is significantly touched below the knee at first contact. We're going to have a big ball, where he's going to get his gross average, but we'll see about the net. Obviously, the kid has technique, but last thing I want to mention on this is something we talked about. A big overstrided second step, like I said, right? I drew the box for him. He went past it almost a half a foot, and there's the hips. And watch the finish. There's the hips really bad. I could almost push him over there. So watch now the right foot. He doesn't leave like the pros because he doesn't have the stored energy, the inertia. You see, it wants to get up, but it stays right there. It stays put. So he's not using his entire body, and that's defeating the purpose, right? We want to use everything. This is a bad example, negative, right? Big second step. I did it in red for you, so it's very clear and evident. And positive would be small. So we'll just play these. This one's going to be a slow-mo. Just want to see you. This kid is very good, but this is a big second step, okay? Look how low contact, he's glued to the floor. Now, the opposite would be get back down to the floor, okay? Very, very quick. You guys can come back to those, I'm sure, and break it down quickly, but I do want to invite a new thought in that's not in the PowerPoint. We like his mold. I think you guys are very familiar with what I refer to as a good mold right here. This is good stuff, but watch the laces up top, okay? Something occurs here at the midpoint of everyone's process, especially the younger guys, where they do a palm up tendency. Remember, we want a handshake. We want a handshake. Uh-oh, here it comes. Oh, look at the movement of the ball, and now we're going to release it or we're going to shake someone's hand like that, so it did weird things to the ball, correct? I mean, nose is up, nose is in, laces are sideways. We're not going to hit consistent footballs like this. And he's not going to have a lot of stored energy. That is a 4-yard block point, by the way. That's why I drew that for him, that circle. So he's all over it. He's right up in it, and he's not leg locked. So great slide to compare and contrast good and bad from the same thing. These are angles. We've done this one. We've actually just kind of showed you the exact same one of that. Backside, I think this is something new. I know it's something new I've done, and I think it's changing the way I coach. It's helping me. It's making me identify things quicker, especially in terms of fixing the feet. So watch it real time, not real time, slow-mo. I put this in here because it's a very interesting rep. Beautiful, well done overall. But I think if I'm going to get critical with him, this is a heel sweep, right? Watch the right heel. See how it kind of impedes the left's track for a second, but then again, this is a pro fixing it. He came back to just enough to give himself a pass. Look how skinny he passes here with the left foot. And then the critical thing that I think the pros do a better job or the best job at is staying out of the way of the right foot here, okay? A lot of college guys will stack. They'll take this left foot here that I'm dragging back and forth, and they'll put it right in front of the right foot so they didn't have to coil around. But here's a good example of staying out of the way of yourself. See how he gives himself the pass, and you want that vertical bottom foot. That's perfect. And then now we can even see contact at the knee, which is brilliant. He could be a little higher with it. He probably dispossessed too soon, but I think it's great to see contact point from the backside. And then this is not a very wonderfully struck ball right here, okay? But I like the front side, okay? And I'll drag this one real quick. Just similar lines I've drawn previously in the PowerPoint, but it's just a good way of seeing if they stay on track. It's another way of seeing the same thing because people have their preferences, but I think it's critical to have all of them. So that's just kind of how it looks there. Oh, there's another palm up tendency. You can see it a lot better from this angle. So you're going to find that each angle has its purpose. Going to move on to an example of something that happened. Jacob Finn is one of my guys. He just finished at Florida. He and I were working out one day, and there was a significant rain delay. I took him inside, and we just worked on some footwork. So I'm going to show you a couple of reference points. The blue tarp, and here are the reference points listed, but that's kind of like the head on a plane. I did this dotted line after the fact, obviously, because that's his natural height. But both of these are good to see if we are stable and we're consistent throughout. We're even. Usually if our head undulates like this, it's something to do with the feet. Okay, so yellow line, we mentioned natural. The yard line in between the feet, and what I mean is this one, not the hash, but the actual yard line that's running in between his feet. We use this a lot. We call this a split line. We call this a bounce beam, whatever you want. But what he's doing is he's doing a phenomenal job here. I think this is probably my favorite slide. I think this is the best technique of the entire presentation. See, he stays out of his way, the little jab, and then his first step, we call this the first step. He's right on his intended target, which is now the balance beam, of course. And then he stays out of his way, of course, because now the left foot comes through nice and narrow. And now I'm going to go back here for a sec right here. Look at how left foot and left hand are synced up. That's how it should look, okay? And it should be dispossessed. Plant side arm can leave right around when feet pass. But notice he still has complete possession in the right hand. And not until left foot starts to head down to plant will he dispossess. That's excellent timing. Excellent timing. And look how small this is. He's nice and reserved. He's not giving his hips away. He's flowing through. Again, it's hard to do without kicking it, but he's going to let the ball miss. But look where it would have hit. Yeah, we're at knee or above it. We love that. That usually results in good things. And then most importantly, now reference the left foot again. He'll have the stored energy, the inertia, because he stayed small, stayed natural to get this. That is what I call a hurdle gap. We're shooting over that hurdle gap. And that brings about some force like no other. He's going to hit his best ball of his life if he can, imitate that in reality. So great time to get better in adverse conditions when we're inside like this, because they can't focus on the result, right? They can only focus on the ball. And I think that's vital. Some guys don't like the balance beam drill, so I have to improvise. You notice I kind of have him starting. I do. I have him starting, splitting himself in half on the hash. And what I did, if you can notice, is in white, I drew like a little hallway. Okay. And that's like his first step. And then I want him to flow through. I extended these with just technology or whatever to show you kind of where I want that to flow. In yellow, that's the hallway or the protection. And then in green is where I wanted him to step to target. So of course, we're not going to kick every ball. And we didn't kick every ball in this training session down the hash like this, but I have them hit straight balls first before I incorporate doing some direction in any training session. I think that they should find confidence going, progress, build up, find confidence, and then go execute. If you throw a kid in a weird spot too soon, like anything else, it might bring about some uncertainty. But I did even say in the last bullet, it's good. It's a good directional punt reference because you just pretend you're going left hash left. And eventually we take this green dot, we move it over here when he wants to go left hash left for real, but keep the same mindset. I'll just play it through once. This is Mac Loudermilk. He's a free agent, but had a heck of a career for UCF. Big boy. If you notice, all these boys are shaped differently. I think that, it's conducive to be taller. Obviously, I would say a 6-foot kid is at a major disadvantage with equal technique as a guy that's 6'3", but you got to do what you got to do sometimes. As I mentioned to start the PowerPoint off, the standards, setting standards in training, I gave you in blue 0.8 second snap, a 1.3 second hand to foot equals a 2.1 second operation. I really think that we need to have two stopwatches in team punting settings. I want one on the hand-to-hand, snap to punt, and I want one on the punter. I want to know how long is he taking when he gets it to when he punts it. Oftentimes you got a kid that's a stud, but he's operating at a 1.7, and we're mad at everybody when it's in fact the punter's fault, or vice versa. If the snap isn't a 0.8 and it's a 0.9, and we're getting mad at the punter for 1.3 second hand to foot, we've got to evaluate everyone, and it takes a little bit of organization. But I strongly encourage at least two stopwatches in all special team settings, for that matter. In the bottom, I said obviously we know that punters are as good as their operation, but if you are a high school coach listening to this, or a college coach looking for a contingency plan, a reliable backup, a guy on my team that may never have snapped in high school, but if you want to identify someone that can probably do it, I think they are natural throwers of the football. I think they're flexible, especially at the ankles. Get them in a snapping position and see if they can keep their feet parallel to the target line. I think it's essential. And they all obviously have to have flexible hips and whatnot, get the back in line with the floor. All these things are vital, and big hands. But I think big hands also are a good indication of good throwers too. And then this is just a sample snap chart, but you should be snapping. You should be charting. You should do it often. This is just, I have a bunch of examples of this, and this is one of them, but just kind of reward them, give them a point system, have them play games. Again, if you're splitting hairs, trying to identify the winner per se in mini camp, get as objective as possible. So notice, like, I have locations at a 0 or 1. Was it a good or a bad location for a short snap, as opposed to a 1, 2, or 3 for a long snap? And here's the 1, 2, and 3 for long snap. Obviously charting the times, and then we're going to find tendencies too, for sure, just like anything else. Going to move on to the next slide. Speaking of scheduling, the first thing I want to say is, in quotes, it's just kind of something I always tell my kids, just to remind them, because a lot of my kids do a lot of things, meaning they punt, they kick off, they hit field goals, they might even play a primary position. But I think in terms of a true specialist, if that's what they do, but they do all three, they should punt often or punt more. Kick field goals a little bit less than punting, and kick off the least, okay, by rule. Kickoffs are very, very violent movement. Kickoffs are unnatural. And below that, I actually wrote an article for AFCA in the November-December edition, and I did a whole article about drawing parallels to the punting movement and how it's natural, how it's a lot more linear, and it's generally speaking, if you want to relate it to baseball and softball, I think punters are more like softball pitchers. They can go every day, right? They're doing something that's conducive to the body. It's natural. Whereas kickers are much more like baseball pitchers. They're doing something violent. They're doing something off the axis, and they're doing something where they need to make certain they are monitoring their reps and they are taking ample amount of time to rest. Below, I'll just let you look at that on a later time. But this is, essentially, I try to break down periods. This was a script I wrote for Coach Meyer years ago in Gainesville, and he just wanted more structure in place for his specialists. And we got very creative. I have a Monday through Friday with an emphasis each day on something unique at the end of the day. This particular day, if you look at the bottom, it does say, I think it got in your way, but bad snap, but anything that says like dry is without the ball, because again, I've referenced this. We do not want the kids to always be thinking about the result. Actually, I would like them to think about that a lot less than what their body does prior to the result, because that brings about the result. Going to move on to dry runs, like we just mentioned. These are without the ball. This is the first one. Just a backside we talked about. They can do this all the time. They should do this daily. They should do this often each day, because it brings about good muscle memory. Some people don't like that term, but your body will remember that movement if you do it. Here's a wonderful example of, I think, the foreground. This is an Old Dominion punter, is better than the background. Notice how smooth and how he just takes his time with it, and how he stores his hips better, and how he has the finish. It's a wonderful way to compare and contrast two guys in the same, or even three if you have that many guys. But that's a wonderful way to compare and contrast and see who's doing what better, when, and how, right? If you want to get really hard, difficult, make training hard, I love it. This is a soccer ball. This is a size 1 soccer ball. It's about a third of the size surface area of the sweet spot of a football. Hard, right? Make it hard. You have to possess it longer. You have less room for error, obviously. You have to come through. You got to stay on a line. And then I think that, like, super advanced stuff would be a tennis ball. This kid hit a brilliant ball here, about 51, 52 yards, right out of bounds right there. But yeah, you just got to think outside the box. That's why I called it that, right? You got to make indie fun sometimes, but challenging, but relatable. There should always be a purpose. I'm just playing this through again to show you. Look at the left foot placement here, just off his path, and then contact a little below the knee. But I mean, the kid's hitting a tennis ball 50 something yards. It's excellent finish. He just got an offer to Arkansas State. So congratulations, Jacob. Stabilization again. This was an injured kid, but you guys are used to that, right? You still have to get better, regardless of your situation. His was unavoidable, but we still found a way to have him stabilize his base a little bit, stay on the endo board. He's trying to receive it, attack it with his hands, get in his mold. Just anything you can. And then one of my final pieces here, guys, is if you're limited on space, don't use that as an excuse. I had this young man just step. His target line was where the green meets the white sideline. So he's going to step 2 and watch how the right foot stays just off the sideline. There you go. Just off the sideline. And we got a nice little linear foot there passing. I'm going to let it run. And that is a gem. That's how to win a ball game. It's a long way. I don't know how far, but sideline drills are wonderful. Obviously, you guys, most of the guys listening, will have a beautiful facility with multiple fields, but I shared that one because it's a great drill that they can do in limited space. Perhaps if they're like away, you guys are on the road and you're just in a setting like a cow pasture or something. Charting punters. I friends with a couple of my guys that in the league that refer me to their special teams coaches, and this is something I like. Is this one? Notice the yellow, notice the green, notice the orange. Those are 1, 2, and 3 point locations. We give 3 a higher mark because it's less discretion for the referees, the officials. 1's put in place, so we give 2 a little bit more out. This can change. Again, I just want to give you an idea, and I want your brains to start working on how we can make every second count for these guys. This would be a competitive situation, but they're going to get 0 points for under 39 and a half. They're going to get 5 for 50 or more yards. Hang time is such, for example, like a 4.25 to a 4.49 would be a 2 point. These can be adjusted to ability level. If this is a high school group of kids, I would adjust these lower. I would definitely give like a 35-yard ball a point, so adjust accordingly. And then you have your distance, you have your hang, and most importantly, you have your direction too. You honor the kid that may be a better directional kid, not quite as big of a ball. That's the purpose. That is the purpose. We've got to do what coach says. This is going to look like calculus, but this is essentially what I do for a living. I live and breathe this stuff, and I try to consolidate my thoughts into a diagram with punting. You're going to have questions on this. Assuredly, this wasn't meant to confuse anybody, but I wanted to get it out there. I call it kickometry, the measurements of kicking. We talked about stagger, we talked about first step, we talked about plant, second step, and then we talked about the 4-yard block point or the contact point, which is up here by the front side. But, this is, I'm gonna let you guys read through this. I don't want to go too in detail here because we've essentially covered all of this. But it's over here in blue and orange and yellow. I'm giving you guys my terminology, like what I say about a plant side arm release point and second step plant box and contact point. So I really hope that helps because it's a good snapshot of what's going on. Lastly, I want to remind you guys, my name is Coach Dan Lundy. I am the founder of Fourth Down University. The bottom black is how to get a hold of me. That is my cell phone. That is my fourthdownu.com is my website. My Gmail account is my primary email. I strongly encourage you guys to listen to my podcast, Fourth Down Focus. It's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. And I am definitely active on Twitter and LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your time, and enjoy your day.
Thank you for tuning in to the AFCA Virtual Clinic. Be sure to catch our next featured event, a virtual position clinic, which will be hosted May 17th through May 27th on the AFCA Digital Library. This event covers the quarterback, defensive back, offensive line, linebacker, wide receiver, special team, running back, defensive line, and tight end positions. If you aren't currently a member of the AFCA, be sure to register or renew today by visiting www.afca.com to secure access to the virtual position clinic. You won't want to miss this exciting opportunity to invest in your skill set and grow as a position coach.